Anybody that has been on the Navajo reservation has either probably heard of some creepy things or have experienced pretty creepy things, namely skinwalkers. I have only seen one, and here is my story. I come from a small town in northern Arizona that's sandwiched between the Pirate Reservation to the north and the U.S. largest Navajo reservation to the south. My high school being so small, always had to travel south 5 to 10 hours one way to play another high school in any sport. This means that we traveled a lot on the Navajo res, and we also usually stayed at hotels when we would head out to play and come home in the morning, but this trip was a little different. I remember the basketball coach saying that the school didn't have enough money to put up the teams in a hotel that trip, so we were going to be on the road for a total of about 12 hours. I was the only male senior to play basketball that season. We had just got done playing our game and headed home on our bus Big Blue. We were headed out and it wasn't long, about 2 hours of driving before we had entered the res. By this time, everybody was asleep with it being about 2 in the morning. When we had crossed the res's border, I noticed that the bus driver sped up and was now going about 85 miles an hour. I thought this was a little weird because he had never exceeded the speed limit, at least not in my high school career. For some reason, I couldn't fall asleep like the rest of my teammates, and I just sat at the back of the bus staring out across the desolate desert landscape that was lit up by the full moon. As I looked out, I could see a figure running towards the bus at an angle of pursuit, and keeping up with the bus at 85 miles an hour. As the figure got closer, I saw that it was a humanoid form. As a matter of fact, it looked exactly like a human, only that the face was painted half black and half white, with glowing eyes. Glowing eyes like a rabbit's eyes reflecting light from a spotlight. I immediately thought, holy crap, it's a skinwalker. The skinwalker ran up to the edge of the road and just kept up pace with the bus, hurling sagebrush and rocks while staring at me. After I made eye contact with the thing, I could not look away. It was as if something was holding my head and eyes in place. The skinwalker just smiled at me, this inhuman smile that went ear to ear, showing crooked yellow pointed teeth. I felt like I was going to throw up, and I was panicking through the whole ordeal. The skinwalker started to crumple down on all fours, still keeping up with the bus. I could see his bones crack and reform. Hair started appearing all over the skinwalker's body, and in about 3 seconds was now a coyote, and it ran off back into the desert out of view. As soon as it was gone, I ran to the onboard bathroom and puked a mixture of food and blood. I didn't want to tell anyone for any fear that they would think I was crazy. I confided in my Navajo friend. She told me that I needed to go see a chief who also happened to be a friend of mine and get a blessing. I saw him the next school day in the parking lot. He just came up to me and mumbled something in Navajo while waving a feathered scepter-like thing. Turned around, got in his truck, and drove away. To this day, I haven't seen another skinwalker. It might be due to the fact that I moved away from that town and res, and if I do have to go south, I go around. Way around. I was visiting my grandparents out in Shiprock, New Mexico during last October to see family and to go to the Northern Navajo National Fair that week. Many Navajo people, including my own family, are very reluctant to speak about skinwalkers because it is believed to attract their attention. However, I grew up away from the Navajo Nation and was very naive about the subject. When it came to skinwalkers, I was an absolute skeptic. My mom used to tell a story how back in the 80s, when she lived with her siblings and grandparents, about how she and my aunt saw a skinwalker just outside their driveway under a streetlight. She described it as a black dog with dirty fur, a twisted noodle-like front leg, and these unnatural eyes with a soft burn of orange glow. Me being my own closed-minded self, I doubted every word, but I never said my doubts out loud. But these doubts totally changed last year when I went to my grandparents' house. Me and my family had just finished going to the carnival at the Navajo Nation Fair and called it a night. The house was close enough where we could walk home in just 10 minutes, and so we did. When we got there, it was about 9 at night, where we stayed up until 2 a.m. catching up on family affairs and the local news. It was during that time that I just decided to open my mouth and blur out the question, "Hey, are skinwalkers real, guys?" I asked. "You shouldn't be speaking about that," my grandmother said with almost a disturbed yell in her voice. So she and my grandfather both decided to go to bed. After being scolded by my mom, one of my aunts chimes in a very cautious tone and says, "They're real, alright. Had a few start screaming outside of my trailer in Farmington just a few nights ago. Your cousin had nightmares the whole time and woke up crying that morning." Not wanting to push the discomfort any further, we decided to go to bed. Now the trailer home is pretty old and it was a really nice night, so we slept with the windows open with screens to prevent bugs from coming in. Everyone drifted off to sleep except me, because my mind was going a million miles a minute about skinwalkers and wondered if I ever encountered one while here in the reservation. As a kid, I was told it was taboo to talk about skinwalkers or to even think about them because it can still call their attention. That's when the shit totally hit the fan. Just as I was settling down and finally relaxing to sleep, I started to hear something moving outside. I get up from the couch and start wandering over to the kitchen window. In the trailer, all of the rooms have the lights out, so the only visible light that can be seen was from the porch light outside. I was thankful for this because I told myself if it really was a skinwalker outside, then hopefully it wouldn't notice me seeing it. So I mustered up the courage and took a quick scan of the outside. From the porch light, all I can see was a dusty ground and the vehicles that my family drove along with some old metal trash cans that stood beside the road. Looking for about good 5 seconds, I wasn't able to see anything, so I was getting ready to turn around and walk back to my bed thinking it was just a stray cat or something. I've only taken 2 steps back when I heard what sounded like a distorted scream coming from outside, definitely close by. Fear rising, I look outside again and there, I see it. A coyote-like figure was staring at my direction from behind the cars, just outside of the reach of the porch light. Only it looked awfully wrong and gave off an evil vibe just from seeing it. It was gray with very disheveled hair and a horrific orange-red soft glow came from its eyes. I knocked the hell out of there and ran back to the bedroom. It was at this moment I had begun to also notice an awful stench in the air that smelled like rotten meat. I started trying to wake up my mom, who was like, "Oh my god, it's 3 a.m. What do you want?" I immediately began in a shaken voice, There's something scary outside." Then she said, It's probably just a stray animal or something. It's the rest. Animals wander all the time at night." She obviously wasn't getting the drift of what I was trying to say, so I screamed, "There's some Blair Witch Project shit going on outside, Ma." That got her attention. "What? What the hell are you talking about?" she asked. Then we heard it. The thing outside started making more of its dreadful like screams and started to sound like trashing outside on the ground. Heard that? That's what I'm talking about. So both her and I got back up, looked outside the window, and the coyote thing was making its way to the door. It walked with an odd limp and dragged its back right leg as if it was handicapped. We could hear it start to scratch against the door and make this odd, muffled moaning sound. My mom went and got my dad, and they both started shouting in Navajo all sorts of words, telling the thing to go away and saying that it wasn't welcome here. Well, all this commotion was enough to get everybody up, and they started walking into the hallway to see what's going on. The only thing my mom did was turn around to them and said, "Skinwalker," while proceeding to point to the door. They already knew what to do. My grandfather got out a handgun from the drawer and a bag of ashes. He coated a few bullets and loaded them into the gun and went straight out the door, yelling out more Navajo that was too fast for me to comprehend. He swung open the door and fired twice. Nothing. The thing managed to escape before my grandpa could put a bullet in it. "That's the fastest one I ever seen," said my grandpa. Next thing you know, my aunts and my parents are freaking out about what just happened, saying stuff like, "What if it comes back tomorrow?" And, "It saw us. Does that mean that we're targets now?" Afterwards, my grandparents calmed everybody down, saying we'll be fine, and we all went to bed eventually. Morning comes and my grandparents call off the neighbors to explain to them what happened. Apparently one of them was a medicine man who used to partake in Yei Chi and came over to bless each family member and the grounds outside. Today, I'm very convinced that what I saw was a skinwalker. I still plan on going back for visits to the family and to the Northern Navajo Nation Fair. I just adamantly hope that I never have such an awful experience like this again. Every summer, my family and I go to camp to Ellsworth, Maine. It's about a 3-hour drive from my house. The camp itself is an hour from the nearest town. I've been going to this camp my entire life and have never had an incident like this happen before. I was watching TV in the middle of the night. Both of my brothers and my parents had gone to bed. I heard a noise coming from the kitchen and realized that the dogs needed to go outside to do their business. So I took my brother's 2 pit bulls and my pinscher outside after turning on the porch light. I walked around to the front yard and let the dogs off the leash. It's so incredibly dark in the woods in Maine that the porch light really only illuminated the porch and nothing else, so I try to keep an eye on them. I was momentarily distracted when I saw a loon on the lake. When I looked back, I saw that the pit bulls were looking at something in the woods. I couldn't see what it was, but I assumed they'd seen a squirrel or a raccoon. It was then that I realized I didn't see Alfie anywhere. She's an awful small dog and she's completely black. I called for her a few times and heard some soft whimpering right where the dogs had been looking earlier. I took a couple steps in that direction and called for her again, worried that she may have gotten her paw stuck between rocks or gotten stuck in a snake hole. Suddenly, I felt something moving behind me. I whipped around and looked down, and it was Alfie. She'd been staying close to me the whole time. I just hadn't seen her. So naturally, I began to think, if Alfie is here, what the fuck is in the woods? I took another step forward, and the pit bulls began to growl. They were slowly advancing and were now on either side of me, looking right into the blackness of the woods. I quickly picked up Alfie and began to back up very slowly. I'm not sure what I thought was there, but there are a lot of animals in Maine, and I figured the dogs knew better than I did, since I couldn't see anything. Right as I turned around, I heard the most absolute bone-chilling thing I have ever heard in my life. Coming from the same direction of the woods where we were staring at earlier, I heard something or someone call Alfie's name. It sounded almost as if it was trying to mimic me, but it was just all wrong. The voice sounded really distorted, and it almost seemed to wail. "Alfie! Alfie!" I freaked the fuck out and ran inside with the dogs. I have no idea what was out there in the woods. My camp is essentially a log cabin overlooking the lake, and our nearest neighbor, who is also a family, lives at least half a mile in the opposite direction of where the thing was. Hey everybody, this is Cryptid Hunter. Thank you so much for listening to my stories today, and I really hope you guys enjoy them. Sorry I have not been able to upload as much as I would like, but due to the coronavirus, we are all kind of stuck and it's a little bit hectic to record right now. But thank you so much for listening to this video. And for those of you who cannot always listen to YouTube or watch YouTube, I've actually created a podcast so you can listen on the go just for you. The link to it will be in the description below. Please hit the like button, subscribe button, and the bell notification so you don't miss any of my new videos. Thank you so much once more. I'll see you soon. Stay strange.